Okie dokie. We're going to see how this all goes. Had some fun the last couple of weeks with the tech, but a few folk joining in. A couple of answers already to the warm-up question. Let's press some buttons. Okay. You'll forgive me, Andrew, for not being surprised by that one at all. There we go. Hello. We figured out some issues, I think. We're going to see what happens, and we've got a little bit of a tech change this evening anyway, which has been enforced. I look massively light just because the problem is where the hockey shelf is. Apparently that might be what the extra light might be what's causing the lines across the screen. So I need to figure out what to do with that. We might be getting a ring light. It might be the answer there. But immediately some of the changes I've made, we're not having the same CPU issues we had last week. CPU's around where I'd expect it to be, rather than up in the stupid region. So a few bits I read on there are good. We'll just let people come in, share the stream, do all the usual bits and pieces. He says, desperately checking. Just checking a few bits of news. There we go. We'll talk about the scores. We know what's going on in the games at the moment. I'm just looking through some of these bits here from the warm-up question, of course. Sweden, says Dave. Ben from Zero Pucks Given says Czech, which is not a huge surprise. Cheap beer, nothing else. Sweden will always be my first choice, but either Germany or Switzerland for places I haven't watched a game, but have seen teams from both these play Frölunda in the CHL before. Oh, not done Switzerland either, Andrew, I would say. It's not the cheapest place to go, is probably the problem. What I potentially recommend is going somewhere like Freiburg down in the southwest, because you can get across the border into Switzerland pretty easily if you wanted to catch a game there. And you can catch a game in Freiburg as well. So that's the one there. G said, Poland, cheapest pint surely. I think we can all get in favour of that. And given the time, I think we're all in favour. But let's get rocking and rolling. Guys, gals, and the gender fluid and all beyond the binary. It is Wednesday night. It is 8 PM. And welcome back once again to the BOTW What's Current stream. My name is Anthony Russell, here to take you through the weird, wonderful and wacky world once again of the National Ice Hockey League structure here in Great Britain. We focus on the National Division. That is our bread and butter. That is our home port, of course. But we are here to have a look through anything and everything from across the NHL. That means the National as well as Division 1 and Division 2 in the north and in the south. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Glad to be joining you once again from here in BOTW Town. So I know there will be one person watching, which is a viewer of the show called Lee. It didn't turn up in the post. Do not worry. I'm sure it'll be here for next time. We have a little surprise for the stream and the hockey shelf, courtesy of Lee, which we will talk about when that finally turns up in the post. Shout out to Royal Mail. Either way, hope everyone is doing great. There's obviously hockey happening as we are speaking. So as we quickly refresh everything, well, Berlin had got themselves back into the game. It was 2-1 as we hit live on the stream, but just seen that there is just been a goal and another assist for Liam Kirk. Ty Ronning has made it 3-1 to the Eisbären Berlin in the Champions Hockey League at the moment. There is also one game happening tonight in the Elite League between the Belfast Giants and the Glasgow Clan. That currently sits at 0-0 late in the first period. But we will let those things tick along. Of course, if you're keeping tabs, do chuck bits and pieces in the chat. But a bit of housekeeping before we start as usual. bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. You know, once for all things related to the NIHL. Thank you for continuing to follow me on my journey through hockey with our Banners on the Road series. And last weekend I was in Swindon for the first visit of the season to the Wildcats from the Hull Seahawks, and It was a game of hockey. We'll talk about it more when we get into the National Division results and bits and pieces momentarily. But also there's other great bits and pieces on there. Our Hockey Story series, which is sort of long form, in-depth pieces of content. We go from the 19th century to the present day, behind the Iron Curtain, into war and beyond. And obviously the last piece is up there at the moment, which is When the Music Stops, which was our in-depth look at what happens when you retire from British hockey, the thoughts, the feelings, and a bit of insight from two guys who put their bodies, their minds and their souls on the line to entertain us week in, week out, which is a great piece, massive fun to write. There's plenty of stuff that you can read over on the website. In 13 and a half years, nearly 1,000 pieces published on the website over at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Otherwise, other bits and pieces you will have. We are obviously live here. It's Wednesday night on YouTube, which is where we usually are during the hockey season to talk about all things NIHL. We're obviously on Twitter at BannersOTW, Facebook Banners on the Wall. What you can do, head down to the description box down below you and check out all the links there, including the link to our virtual busking hat at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. And of course, the other great bit is we're live on YouTube every Wednesday night during the season, unless I accidentally poison myself again, which we're trying not to do, and we're getting investigated by doctors now. But the great thing you can do is you can go check out the chat over there. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything that comes up that you want to chat about whilst we're talking our way through the wonders of British hockey here, please feel free. But of course, if you want to take part in the chat, please do remember the golden rule here at BOTW, which is DPAD, don't be a dick, be respectful of other people's thoughts and feelings, and we will all get along just swimmingly. Lee, I can see you popped into the chat. I'm sorry, my good man, but yeah, it's just not turned up. What did turn up was an Amazon driver managing to post a parcel through our house, which was definitely not addressed for us or anybody else. And when I contacted Amazon, they said, donate it or throw it away. Different, obviously. But either way, plenty of bits and pieces have been going on. So, a couple of bits and pieces though before we kind of get into bits and pieces. If you're new to the show, we're going to go through every single game that's happened across all 5 divisions of the NIHL. Andrew is probably going to be very kindly chuck some WNIHL bits and pieces in the chat. And if you've been enjoying keeping tabs on WNIHL bits from Andrew, stay tuned in the coming weeks. Is all I will say. Got some fun bits and pieces in the works on that one, and with all due respect, I will leave the master to do his work on that part. However, we do need to, of course, touch on a few bits and pieces, and of course the very, very sad news that's come out of Slough in the last couple of days, which is the sad passing of Tyler Hatfield, the son of Slough Jets defenseman Harry Hatfield and his wife Michaela. Sending all of our love and life to the Hatfield and the Underdown families, everybody connected to the Jets at the moment as well. Obviously, we saw the Jets game with Chelmsford was cancelled over the weekend, which is down to what happened over the weekend as a result. It's just crushing news. Tyler was 3 years old. The family are sort of saying if people want to do something in Tyler's memory, then you can donate. I'm just going to very, very quickly pull up the bits and pieces because I just want to make sure I get this right. If we're going to talk about it, I had the results up, but not this. So they're asking for donations to SUDC UK, which is Sudden Unexplained Death in Childhood. It's a condition that, just reading this here, SUDC is the unexpected death of a child aged between 1 and 18 years that remains unexplained. Around 40 children affected every year in the UK, comparable to 1 to 2 seemingly healthy children dying every fortnight, often going to sleep and never waking up. SUDC UK, it's a registered charity dedicated to awareness, research and family support. Obviously, a horrible, terrible thing. I'm a parent of a 7-year-old. I know a lot of you guys who tune in, week out, are parents as well. So if you're wanting to do something in Tyler's memory, you can head over to the website. It's sudc.org.uk. That's sudc.org.uk to put some money in that lovely little young man's memory. Tyler, sleep tight. And you're just sending lots of love to Harry, to Michaela, and to the entire family going through what is a horrible, horrible moment. And just keeping folk in the Jets in our thoughts as well. Not going to be an easy couple of weeks for those guys, but I'm sure they will carry on and hopefully be able to kind of get back to normality in the not too distant future. So yeah, not obviously a nice note to start the show on, but important, and also, but now we've touched on that bit. We can kind of crack on and talk about the other bits. The other little bit that we do need to touch on, of course, is normally over the last. And I know we've had a few tech issues over the last couple of weeks, which seem to be balancing out all right at the moment. My CPU is not exploding tonight, but usually one thing that we would do is that we would get up the box scores from NIHL Stats. So Joe Scutts, who is statistically in a lot of ways, both metaphorically and literally saved British hockey by keeping tabs on everything over the last couple of years. Well, Joe has been putting together these box score packs for North and South 1 and 2. Joe's on holiday this week. I did speak to him earlier in the week. He's having a really good time. He's relaxed. It does mean that we do not have the box scores like we've had. So we've not been able to have that depth of stuff for South and North 1 and 2 this week. We've got a bit of a workaround that we're going to try. I'm not going to promise it's going to be brilliant, and it does mean that we're not allowed. We can't go quite into some of the depth, particularly in North and South 2, as I would like to. But Joe is one of the hardest working people in British hockey, and he massively deserves a break. So we're definitely not going to begrudge him that. But if you're really, really into your North 2 and your South 2, do bear with us this week, just because the ability to kind of research stuff. Also, as well, in the next couple of weeks, it's going to be a bit of a strange one on the website itself, because this weekend sees the start of a month for me commentating for the Guildford Flames. Now, I am effectively the Flames backup. I'm kind of like Adam Long. I get rotated in as and when, and I've got a few. I obviously commentated for the Flames right at the beginning of the year. I had the home opener of their competitive campaign against Manchester, and I'm back to commentate against Manchester again this Sunday. I seem to be the Storm's pet commentator in Guildford at times, but certainly the next couple of weeks on the website are going to be different. What we're going to do is we're going to try and kind of work around that. Obviously, Banners on the Road focuses on the game I've been to, and Andrew is partly helping with this, with what you're going to see. Trying to do some other bits and pieces that are more sort of related to hockey outside of the Elite League, where all of the hockey I'm going to see with my own two eyes is going to be like that. So bear with, I think, would probably be on that one. I know, obviously, Banners on the Wall has become a focal point for NIHL content. I know I'm not the only person who does it, but obviously kind of just wanted to keep you guys updated. The show is not going to change. Not going to change at all here on Wednesday nights on the What's Current stream, but just just want to kind of give people a heads up, because I'm off to do something that I really, really enjoy doing, and it's just going to alter the content for a couple of weeks, but trying to do some bits and pieces around it, and it's opening the door, like giving Andrew a chance to do something that he's going to do, and I'm so excited to read what he's putting together. It's going to be great. And I'm just trying to do some other bits and pieces as well, just to kind of have some different content on the website. And like I say, I'm edging towards having published 1,000 pieces on Banners on the Wall. So kind of still don't really know what to do on that front. But yeah, certainly the next couple of weeks I've kind of got a chance to kind of think about it. Still going to be writing for the programme for the Romford Raiders. Thank you to the folk on the Raiders Facebook group who helped me kind of select a topic for this week. Had an idea. Someone gave me an idea, so I've kind of run with it a bit. We'll kind of veer off and do something different kind of for the following week, but really hope people enjoy it. Thank you, James. Just seen that comment pop up in the chat. So yeah, so the next 4 weeks, so I'm commentating on Guildford against Manchester, Fife, Coventry and Nottingham, and then I've got a couple of games that I'm doing over Christmas as well. I'm doing the 28th of December and the 5th of January. I can't remember who Guildford are playing on the 28th of December, which is really bad. I know they're playing Cardiff on the 5th, but I just can't, for some reason, I cannot remember for the life of me who Guildford are playing on December 28th when I'm due there after that. Oh, it's Manchester again. Righty ho. Sorry, Storm fans. I think you're going to get me again on that front, but fair enough. Can't argue that one. But yeah, so I've got this coming Sunday against the Storm. It's at 6 p.m. and then I've got Saturday the 23rd, Saturday the 30th, and Saturday the 7th of December, which is going to be a lot of fun for me. Either way, that's going to be lots of fun. If you want to listen in while I'm doing that, please do. Be a lot of fun, or at least watch the highlights and just listen to me get all shouty and excited. Either way, we need to leave the Elite League behind for a minute, and it's time to have a chat about the bits and pieces in the NIHL from the last weekend, which means it's time to look into the National Division as we let everything quickly settle down once I've pressed the buttons. There we go. And one thing I am going to say, because of the changes I've had to make with Joe being on holiday, everything's going to be on this screen tonight. No scrolling through documents. Everything's going to be on the graphics. But we definitely do need to talk about it. And the game I was at last weekend, the first game that pops up on the graphics. Remember, of course, if you do like the graphics that we some of the bits and pieces, the fixture graphics, of course, we'll talk about in a minute. These I just have to kind of screenshot. So sorry, that's as good as I can do on that front. But this is the game I was at this last weekend. Swindon Wildcats with their 4-3 overtime victory over the Hull Seahawks at the Link Centre, and this was a slog of a game to watch. I'm not going to lie. This game took a bit out of me in terms of watching. It was two good teams who had a game that presented moments of quality in a game that just wasn't brilliant, in my opinion. Obviously, checked in with the Maccas Talk Hockey boys. They were a bit more positive about this game than I was, particularly as Swindon fans. I can totally understand that. This game, it was enjoyable, and the end was certainly entertaining. In terms of the hockey on display, this was a game of missed chances after missed chances after missed chances. It was not one that was going to win second prize in the beauty contest on your Monopoly board, I think is probably the best way to describe that one. But ultimately, Hull dig a goal out in the last minute. Chris Jones taking a delay of game penalty that gave Hull the opportunity for the 6-on-4, which they convert on. 2 goals from Bobby Chamberlain, 1 from Emil Svek. In this, the goals for the Seahawks in this one. Aaron Nell, Chris Jones, and I must say, one of the best goals I've seen all season with my own 2 eyes from Josh Shaw. And Shaw thinking he got the winner there at 57.09. It is a brilliant goal. When I don't know if Swindon have got the highlights out yet, but make a moment to go and search this goal out. For such a young player, a goal of poise, of quality. He sent Zimostra to the shops on this one. But then, ultimately, just a bizarre goal. And you'll see it on the highlights. Aaron Nell's overtime winner, which is just, it's an unacceptable goal to give up if you're Hull. You can't let Aaron Nell have chances standing at the top of the crease. Not only did they give him 1, they gave him 2 in the space of about 5 seconds. Just very, not great. Swindon offensively kind of got bogged down by Hull's defence. Guys were kind of misfiring. Dimitri Zamostra did play well as well. Actually, Rennie Marr made some pretty good saves too, but neither side particularly potent in attack in this game. And I think they will be, especially given the Sunday results, they'll be looking for better going forward in this one. As we kind of move on, if you want to read more about that game, do go check out bits and pieces over on the website, bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. And then over to Slough, and, well, Telford are starting to warm up a little bit. A demolition of the Bees, as we can see there. 1 point in the last 10 for Dom Gabai and Ashley Tate's side. Comprehensive victory there. Shout out to Joe Scutts and Chris Bill, who were on the commentary for this one. Really enjoyed the highlights in terms of what was put together there. But a couple of goals from Eric Henderson, David Thompson, Tom Byrne, James Smith and Harry Ferguson with the goals for the Tigers as they got back to winning ways after their really tough weekend. The weekend before, getting nothing out of the 2 games they played against Leeds. Lone goal coming late in the game for the Bees from Dom Gabai as he battered in a Josh Kelly shot past Brad Day. And then, late goals in quite a lot of games. But all things considered, probably not as late as this one. Bristol and Solway, 2 teams battling out for that last playoff spot. Solway actually getting the lead in this one through Callum Boyd, one of my favourite players to watch in this division for the sheer energy level that he brings. Tied up for the Pitbulls later on in the second period, thanks to Bailey Hayward with a short-handed goal. And then, well, it all falls apart for Solway at the death. A late penalty for Mason Alderson, and Tanner Butler, the captain of the Pitbulls, with that goal 8 seconds from time. And if you've not watched the video of that one, not as pretty as the Josh Shaw goal, but sure as hell just as cathartic for everybody down at Cribbs Causeway. A smashing goal from Butler to give Bristol the 2 points there. And then, well, Milton Keynes' fantastic run at home comes to an end. They lose at the Thunderdome for the first time in quite a while, especially considering how good their record was last year and then their sort of disappointing playoffs. But the Ashes, this Ashes encounter, the local derby, ends up going all the way to overtime. MK ahead early in this one through Tom's Rutkiss, level at the end of the first period thanks to a power play goal from Cam Huff. Teams trading goals there in the second as Malik Martelli and Scott Robson both get on the board. Austin Mitchell-King, though, giving the Phantoms the lead at the end of the second period. And then a power play goal in the third with 7 and a bit minutes left to go from Jordan County, sending the game to overtime. But he did it in the playoff final. He does it week in, week out. Mr. Peterborough, Luke Ferrara from Yanni Lackinen. And we've all said, everybody and their mother has said, what sort of a combination these two are going to prove. And, I mean, Tom Norton just got the joy of being on the ice and watching that one just go round and round in circles as Ferrara and Lackinen combine for a pretty nice overtime winner that gives the Phantoms the extra point. A few people moaning about potential interference on that final goal. I've sat back and I've watched it. There's a small hint of it in one moment, but I think unfortunately their MK's 3-on-3 overtime unit probably going to be getting a workout in training for how much they were turned around in this one. And then from the last game on Saturday, it's the Knights again, the Yorkshire derby over at Ice Sheffield, and we keep using the word relentless. A big game actually in a lot of ways, given the recent records. Both sides have been doing relatively doing quite well, but the Knights are the ones who dominate in this one. Noah McMullin putting the Knights ahead before the game was tied up by Jonathan Phillips. And then the Knights, they took over and took control in the second period. Matt Barron, Finn Braden and Kieran Brown, Braden and Brown scoring within about sort of a minute and a half of each other, and before a second goal from Braden on the power play made it 5-1. A late consolation goal from Nathan Ripley, taking some shine off the scoreline, but ultimately a 5-2 win for the Knights heading into Sunday. And it was not a good weekend for the Dogs, a 0-point weekend for Ben Morgan's side as they go down at the Sapphire 6-3 against the Romford Raiders. And I think potentially now we need to start having the conversation about just how real this Romford title, this Romford Silverware Challenge is going to be, especially because we know off the back of results, and we'll talk about the implications in a minute. But goals for the Steel Dogs in this one, 2 from Nathan Ripley and 1 from Walker Summer, of course, is doing a massive amount of damage in the scoring charts in the National Division. And then goals for the Raiders, hat-trick from Sean Miller, 2 goals as well from Jake Sylvester, and another goal in his sort of potentially temporary, potentially longer stay from Zach Yokoyama. He's really hit the ground running in Romford. I did theorise that he would be a player that would fit well into Romford stylistically, and he seems to be doing just that. But a big result for the Raiders as they look to keep tabs with everyone at the top of the table. And then, well, Swindon scraped one out on Saturday night and then absolutely blew it on Sunday. 3-0 up in Leeds against the Knights, thanks to 2 goals from Reid Sayers and Aaron Nell. But the Knights win by 5-4. They come storming back. In the to tie the game up first at 3-3 by the end of by the first minutes of the third period. Glenn Billing then puts Swindon back in front, but another goal from Kieran Brown to secure Kieran Brown with 4 goals on the night, and then Matt Barron putting the exclamation point to win the game. For them, and it's another 4-point weekend for the Knights. They are just absolutely devastating, and Swindon left scratching their head. Also, look at that record just above the Swindon Wildcats thing there. Obviously, the OT win and the win going into tonight, but they've been dropping points when they shouldn't have done, and ultimately it's cost the Cats when it comes to the first piece of silverware of the season, that bit of inconsistency. Then in Hull, they went back to the 1980s. Look at this scoreline. This is insane. A bad weekend for Hull, one that saw Matty Davies come out in the post-game interview up in the bar at the Hull Arena and in the Yorkshire Evening Post as well, saying that the performances were not acceptable this weekend, and that's in spite of points coming from his top end. A hat-trick for Johnny Corneal, another goal for Emil Svek, as well as a goal for Jordan Fisher. If you score nut 5, you really should be winning, but ultimately 4 goals from Max Stewart, as well as goals from James Griffin, Dylan Lawrence, Harry Gulliver and Tom's Rutkiss round out a 9-5 victory. So given a 3-point weekend for the Lightning, not all lost there, but certainly given the fact that they lost at home to Peterborough, a response was needed from Tim Wallace's men, and a response they have got. Although we do know that Tim Wallace has had a 5+ game penalty. A sort of game misconduct penalty put on him off the back of a hit that he made in this game. Only given penalty points, no suspension for Wallace on that play. So as I said earlier on Twitter, a slap on the wrist, which if you ask Tim Wallace is definitely better than being sticked in the nuts. It was, however, two teams came out Saturday night with wins. Who would have the 4-point weekend? And the answer was the Peterborough Phantoms. They defeated the Bristol Pitbulls by 6-4 over in Breton. First goal of the night going to Billy Thorpe. Of course, a pretty productive few days for him, not only getting the first goal in a Phantoms win, but also having secured himself a 2-way contract for the rest of the season with the Coventry Blaze, having impressed during pre-season and having trained here and there with the Blaze. Coach Kevin Moore, a man not particularly keen on 2-ways, has handed one out to Thorpe, so he'll be on the Blaze roster for the rest of the year, although from the roster spot regulations for 24-25, 2-ways do not count against that. Thorpe can effectively be thrown in and used for up to 20 games, and Challenge Cup games do not count against those 20 either. So if the opportunity arises, which will probably be few and far between given the amount of games Coventry have at weekends, but Thorpe has got the opportunity to get some Elite League minutes this season, so congratulations to him. Elsewhere, 2 goals from Cam Huff, 2 from Luke Ferrara and Austin Mitchell-King, along with Thorpe there getting the goals. Goals for the Pitbulls coming, 2 from Bailey Harewood, 1 from Cam Hamill and 1 from Mason Lipsey. Great to see the young Brits getting that ice time, that opportunity. Not a perfect weekend for Bristol, but considering how bad they were at the beginning of the season, the group is really coming together. And are they going to be there? Are they going to make some ridiculous title charge? Absolutely not. We can see that. But they're starting to figure out who they are. We're starting to get a bit of identity to Barry McKenzie, Bristol Pitbulls hockey, which I think is a good sign for the league. And then, having played in Slough on the Saturday evening, they turn things around and they face off in Shropshire, and it is a shutout for Brad Day. He only concedes 1 goal on the weekend as the Tigers have to have a bit more of a battle in this one. The Bees turned up on Sunday determined to kind of make more noise than they had before, but ultimately it's the David Thompson show once again. Him and Eric Henderson have hit the ground running beyond the full speed. They're almost at supersonic speeds at this point. Goals coming in the first and the second from Thompson, but it is enough to get the Tigers a much needed 4-point weekend as they look to claw themselves back into the mid-table. And for the Bees, well, they're left scratching their heads as they only score 1 goal on the weekend, coming again from Dom Gibai. You do wonder where we're starting to head towards that point where there might be a few more sort of players sort of moving around. Do the Bees look to potentially change things and bring in another goal scorer? Of course, we know, we hear and we understand that they maybe aren't the biggest budget of sides, but they will probably and potentially be keeping an eye out for extra goal scoring ability. So those are the games from the National Division, which means we'll have a quick look. So, Cup table first, and we have our 4 semi-finalists for the National Division Cup, because with only 1 game left, Peterborough don't hold the tiebreaker over Romford, and that means that the Leeds Knights, the MK Lightning, the Sheffield Steel Dogs and the Romford Raiders have qualified for the semi-finals of the NIHL National Division Cup. Congratulations to those 4. Last season's finalists, Hull, miss out as a result. Swindon miss out. Peterborough miss out. And those are teams that you probably might have chucked a couple of quid on it. With all due respect to the Raiders, even Raiders fans themselves thought they were getting a bit of a free hit this season. The coaching of Adam Leishram has got them into a semi-final for the first time in quite some time, and certainly for the first time in the Cup in the National Division era. So congratulations there. Off the top of my head, I don't know whether they're just doing first versus fourth and second versus third, or whether they get to pick again like they did last year. If you're Leeds, I'm interested to see who you pick, because if I'm Leeds, given how successful they've been against Sheffield, they might want to take that one instead, rather than immediately going for Romford, a team that will be fueled by emotion, anger and everything else that comes at you when it comes to Romford hockey. Either way, we are staring down the barrel of a bunch of different scenarios. Can Romford run the table? Can the new Steel Dogs era find a way to claw themselves into the final? Can MK realise some of that potential and retain the cup? Can Leeds finally get their hands on the trophy that's eluded them the last couple of years? Plenty of exciting things to happen when it comes to the National Division Cup. We then, of course, need to look at the league table itself, and there's not much difference. However, you can see the relatively large difference, and that's that massive drop-off from Sheffield in terms of their league form to their cup form. Hull still in third, despite only having a 1 point weekend, and that's due to sort of goal difference and results. But as we can see there, Leeds top of the pile, 2 points clear of the MK Lightning, and then 4 teams on 22 points. Hull, Romford, who have 2 games in hand and could get themselves up to 26 points if they won all those in hand. Peterborough and Sheffield. So Romford on level points with Hull, Peterborough, and Sheffield, with 2 games in hand that could put them potentially third, which is pretty crackers, all things considered. But at the moment, as we can see, it's the Knights again, who every time they've gone past the 60 minutes haven't won yet. No overtime wins for Ryan Aldridge's side. And then, as we can see there, Swindon still with 3 games in hand, so they could pull themselves into that sort of top 6. So, but that inconsistency is starting to bite them a little bit. Telford, though, with their recent upturn in form and some inspired import manoeuvrings by Tommy Watkins, bringing in the 2 new Canadians from Poland, has got them back up into 8th spot. They are level on points with Bristol, but the Pitbulls do have a game in hand, so Telford do need to be careful there. Solway are 2 points back of both Telford and Bristol, but have 2 games in hand on the Pitbulls and 3 games in hand on the Tigers. The Bees, bottom of the table at the moment, 10 from 18, which does not bode well in their favour. Let's have a quick look then at the upcoming fixtures. Of course, Max Van Mullen, fantastic young man, Romford Buccaneers netminder, and our graphic supremo here at Banners on the Wall for the What's Current stream. So thanks to Max as always. And it's Friday Night Lights for the Battle of the Southwest at Cribbs Causeway as the Bristol Pitbulls welcome the Swindon Wildcats. Big game for both sides here, especially given Bristol's overtime win in Swindon a couple of weeks back. Big for different reasons for both these sides, but should be a fascinating encounter over down on the other side of the M5. The other game on Friday night, big and towards the top end of the table, the MK Lightning will be looking to get back to winning ways on home ice. Can they do the business against potential Cup semi-final opponents, the Sheffield Steel Dogs? Should be an interesting one, this one. I'm undecided as to which of those Friday games I might try to watch, but all things considered, both will be pretty decent. We know that much. We then head into Saturday, just the 4 games on Saturday evening as a result. But it's going to back-to-back games for a couple of teams that we can see. Leeds will take on the Bees at the Castle. Tough one for the Bees there. Top versus bottom on Saturday night. Romford fresh off the fact that they have qualified for the Cup semi-final, host the Telford Tigers, looking to avoid a slip up there. How will the new raft of Canadian imports in Telford deal with the raft of imports that have been very impressive? Schufelt and Miller versus Thompson and Henderson. That could be a very, very interesting battle to watch. Solway host Bristol, looking to not give up a goal 8 seconds from time to lose the game this week. And Swindon, well, depending on how well they do against Bristol, they will either way they head back home down the M4. They take on the Peterborough Phantoms on Saturday night at the Link Centre, and then on Sunday a full 5 game docket. The Bees will be at home. They're looking to try and get more than their 1 goal last weekend. They take on the Swindon Wildcats. Hull take on Solway at the world's most versatile arena. Peterborough versus Leeds, potential to steal the weekend in terms of action. That one. Sheffield take on the Raiders at Ice Sheffield, and then Sunday, Telford 6:30, Tigers, Lightning to round out bits and pieces for the National Division for this upcoming weekend. So some good bits there, some interesting action from across the National Division this past weekend. You can see a few bits there in the chat. It's not real. Steel Dogs are missing 3 or 4 top players and a netminder. You beat what's in front of you. That's not any, it doesn't matter really there on that front, James. Yoko, apart from stupid fight against Solway, has been very well behaved and productive. I think as well because Zach Yokoyama being around allows Adam Leishram the potential to, one, coach better because it's hard to play and coach, but also it allows Leishram the opportunity to just get well again. I think there's something to be said about hockey players feeling the need to rush back, particularly if you're a guy like a top level import for your team that's relied on for a lot of offense, relied on for a lot of scoring, and actually Leishram isn't relied on for that now. Shufelt and Miller have been so prolific that actually he's just been able to concentrate on kind of doing the things that coaches do, which isn't a bad thing for Leishram. But as you say, Zach Yokoyama has come in, he's made a difference, and will we see him stay for the rest of the year? Unknown. It depends obviously on the injury to Leishram. Romford, I assume, will kind of announce something as and when that comes along. But we keep our eyes on that. Gary Skeggs, worst performance of the season by the Bees. It was terrible. The lack of goals by the Bees this season is a big concern. About 2.3 per game. It is an incredibly low number, all things considered, and it is not the sort of numbers that you need to be putting up if you're wanting to kind of compete in this division and get yourself into playoff spots. Just looking at the scores around bits and pieces at the moment, Glasgow, Belfast is still 0-0 into the second period there. And while the Sheffield Steelers are hanging around at the moment, it is now 3-3 end of the second period as we've been talking, which is a fantastic comeback by the Steelers. Of course, when we started the show, it was 3-1 to Berlin, but goals from Sam Tremblay and Dominic Cormier. Cormier scored actually inside the last minute of the second period, meaning the scores are tied at 3 at the Utilita Arena as we head into the final period of this game. Of course, remember the two sides will meet next week at the Wellblech-Palast in Ostberlin to go for that one. That game is not happening at the arena. Berlin, I believe, do not play this. If they get to the final stages, I believe they'll play at the Uber Arena, the big one. But yes, ultimately not playing some of these early round games, and played none of their sort of round robin group stage games at the arena. They played it at the Wellblech-Palast, the old rink where they now train. Just had a message here from somebody saying Steelers are keeping themselves in it. Yes, they very much are. Let's just quickly get rid of that. But yeah, so massively impressive from the Steelers to just kind of hang around. Actually, I genuinely don't feel that Berlin are going to lose over the course of 2 games, and I think the fact that the second leg is in Berlin massively causes an issue for the Steelers. But I saw, and somebody, David Grant, who's one of the co-hosts of the 3-on-3 podcast, and has, I've known Dave for a really, really long time, said it's the biggest game ever held at that arena. I personally don't think the CHL is at that point where you can say that, given some of the things that the Steelers have done domestically in that building. I get why, and I get why people are excited, and I don't begrudge people's excitement. I still remain unconvinced by the CHL until the top end sides kind of take it a bit more seriously. And I get why Sheffield are, and Sheffield are putting on in the same way that Belfast have opened the door for British hockey with the Friendship 4 and signing lots of guys out of North American universities. Where Belfast have kind of opened that door, Sheffield have kind of opened that door for elite league clubs to bring in imports to kind of play in this sort of competition with all the big boys. Now, what does that mean for where people say it's big for British hockey? I don't necessarily agree. I think it's good for the elite league. I think it's good for those sort of bits and pieces, but I remain unconvinced in that sort of it's good for British hockey at the moment sense. But I'm never going to, people sitting down watching hockey, I ain't going to argue with it at all. Hope that the folk in Sheffield are enjoying every minute of this ride, all things considered. Lightning still undefeated at home in regulation, clinging to the streak. No, you lost. This isn't like back in the day when Peterborough used to say if they lost in OT it was a draw. You lost. Alderson icing for Belfast too. Yeah, and absolutely makes sense that he's doing so given the fact it's a Wednesday evening. Let's just quickly pull up the player stats, just because I'm interested to see, given it's a Wednesday evening. So no Archie Salisbury for the Clan, which is a little bit of a shame, obviously. As we see though, as we can see though from the roster, Mason Alderson in the lineup tonight. He appears to be the only one of the two-ways doing so. Currently, as we speak, has 2:31 of ice time across the. Although that being said, this is live in the second period still, so the fact that he's only iced a 2.5 minutes inside the first period and a bit, I'll take that. I think that's pretty good, all things considered. But yeah, anything on the National Division? Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything anyone wants to stick in the chat before we start our run through NHL 1 and 2? He says, needing a drink. This is the frustrating thing, knowing I'm commentating at the weekend and I've got to do this because I want to kind of protect my voice, but at the same stage, I want to do the show. But I can also feel a tickle at the back of my throat, which is really annoying at the same time. Great for the IHL, horrible for Team GB due to huge import numbers, but that's business interests. Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for how we find that balance. And certainly I think the stuff from the beginning of the year about Ice Hockey UK and the Elite League working together as to kind of what happens with the national team, I think is quite good. And hopefully the answer is not just give more guys passports and not do something with the player pool that we already have. I think that'd be quite frustrating. But yeah, a lot of hockey to be played this season. We'll obviously see. Obviously, the Olympics is not going to be a thing for 2026, which is frustrating. So all eyes kind of towards World Championships at the end of this year, which you feel, given the age of some of the guys, is going to be potentially the last World Championship for a couple of guys on the team. Although Mark Richardson seems to just be eternally young. So fair play to him. Fair play to him on that one. Either way, just looking at bits and pieces, like I say, keep sticking bits and pieces in the chat because we'll keep touching on bits and pieces as we go along. So like I say, a bit different this week just because we don't have the full bits and pieces. We're going to have to kind of make do with what we've got. I'm going to press that button, which will then bring up the results from Division 1 in the north. Someone swap his drink for helium. No, definitely not. That won't go well. But either way, a look at last weekend in NIHL North 1. And as we can see, well, if you thought that Sunday was pretty crazy with a 9-5 win, the same rink in Hull had a 9-6 game on the Saturday, followed by a 9-5 game on the Monday. Hull and D-side deciding why defend when you don't need to defend, and a 9-6 victory, including a very, very pretty goal from Vlad Volkanovs for the Jets in this one. D-side, of course, had a little wobble recently, and this is their sort of second loss in a couple of weekends, having lost last weekend as well. They did seem to be making a really big charge, and then lost to the Nottingham Lions, and now lost away at Hull too. Definitely not ideal for them. Leeds Knights, NHL 1 roster, well, they had a late face-off on Saturday evening against the Billingham Stars, and the Stars made them pay a 10 spot from the league champions against that young Knights NHL 1 roster. And you'd sort of expect Billingham to kind of come out with this one with a victory. All things considered, pretty hard lesson there for the Knights. Only the 2 games, of course, on the Saturday, North 1, and then Sunday. Well, they don't like each other a great deal, but Blackburn have generally had Nottingham's measure this season, grinding out a 4-1 victory over at the Hawks' Nest. The Lions have been an interesting one this year, and it does look like, given how things have been, that they probably are going to be a relatively safe bet for the playoffs, given some of the teams below them. But the one thing the Lions are generally lacking is that little bit of consistency, even with the addition this season of Aleš Padalek. Blackburn had a bit of an on and off start to the year. Again, that consistency kind of lacking. Whitley kind of suffering from the same problems as well to start the year, and they're probably a bit lower down the table than they would like to be. But Blackburn, if they can kind of get on a run, they're going to cause some headaches as a result. D-side, however, rebound from getting absolutely walloped the night before by shutting out Solihull, the team that finished second in the league last year. The Barons go to North Wales and the door is closed on them. So useful for the Dragons to at least get 3 points out of the weekend, as opposed to Leeds Knights, who get no points out of the weekend. A second win of the season, finally, for the Sheffield Scimitars. They win by 3-0 at Sheffield, so another shutout on Sunday in North 1. And then Widnes, well, they finally got their first win last weekend, the weekend before last, sorry, but They do put up something of a decent fight actually against the Whitley Warriors, but ultimately Tony Hand's side come away with the 7-4 victory, meaning that Widnes still confined to that one overtime victory so far. So let's just have a quick look then, as we can see here at the North. Just need to. There we go. Let's press the buttons and the things will actually work. Get ourselves to the North 1 table. As things stand at the moment. So as we can see there, Widnes with just that one lone victory in extras, meaning they are bottom on 2 points, and then Leeds and Sheffield level on 7 points. Of course, the Shims now will have the tiebreaker over the Knights, but the Knights do have a game in hand over the Scimitars. And as we can see there, Nottingham quite comfortably into the playoff spots, which is something that they'll have been wanting the extra teams. The extra team, just to kind of make things a bit more comfortable for them in North 1. But actually, they've won 5 games of 11 already. That's pretty good, all things considered, for Nottingham, even though they appear to be sort of by themselves. Although, as we can see, the 3-2-1 0-point system, especially given the consistency of Billingham as well, 3 wins on top of everybody else means that they are starting to pull away, 9 points clear of Blackburn in second place, with the Hawks and the Dragons tied on 27 points in second place. Hull in fourth on 26. So second to fourth only being separated by 3 points, and 5 points separating second and fifth, which is pretty impressive. Whitley 22 from 12 there in fifth place, followed by Solihull, Nottingham, Sheffield, Leeds, and Widnes. But Billingham, that one defeat where they sort of got a bit walloped around by Solihull, having travelled with a short bench, 91 goals in 13 games is pretty impressive stuff from Stephen Foster's men. Michael Elder and the boys on the ice continuing to do the business there, and if they keep that consistency up, the Billingham are going to retain their title. That much is clear. Either way, just a quick look then into the fixtures for this upcoming weekend, the 16th and 17th of November in North 1. Just the 2 games on Saturday, both league only encounters. The Scimitars will look to build on their positive result from Sunday at home as they take on the Solihull Barons, who will obviously shut out away in North Wales last weekend. Can the Barons get something out of this one? I've seen the spelling mistake that Joe's made here, but it doesn't matter on that one. But the Hull Jets, can they put up another 9 goals at home as they take on the Nottingham Lions at 5:30 at the world's most versatile arena? And then full docket, full house, everybody plays on Sunday in North 1. 5 p.m. at Hillheads for the Whitley Warriors and the Deeside Dragons. 3 games at 5:30. Billingham versus Hull. That could be a pretty big one with title connotations on the line. And Widnes versus Sheffield are both league-only encounters. Solihull and Blackburn's game is a league and cup combo deal. The Barons then with 2 games this weekend, 6 points on offer for them, could make a big statement if they can get a 6-point weekend out of this one. And then the late show, as late as you're going to get on a Sunday, 6 p.m. at the Castle. Can the Leeds Knights get themselves on the board and get something out of the Nottingham Lions? Just a look at the chat there. Sorry, John, apology, I'm sure that comment's been there for a little while. Thoughts on Matty Davies' after-match comments rant following the MK loss? As the person who broke the news of the Hull Seahawks coming into existence, and as somebody who's spoken to Matty quite a bit over the last 2 and a bit years, I expect nothing less of Matty Davies when he thinks the performances are below par. They certainly were not great on Saturday when I saw them. They shipped 9 goals at home against MK. Matty Davies is wants his sides to be competing and causing a problem in every game, and to lose in that fashion is not going to be acceptable. I think there's going to be some very, very harsh words have been said during this week in Hull. Either way then, let's have a quick squiz at South 1 as we have a look. A couple of games on both days here. Cardiff, fresh off of getting their first win of the season last weekend, gave Slough a scare, 2-2 this one at the 40-minute mark, before Slough decided to wake up and then cause an absolute madness in the last period. A 5-goal third period from Lucas Smithill's side, and the Jets get the points on the board. And if that one was close, well, Romford will be absolutely kicking themselves. They were 5-1 up and lost in OT at home to the Chelmsford Chieftains. They had them where they wanted them and then lose the local derby. I feel a bit gutted, of course, for our boy here, Max van Mullen, unable to get to eke out the result there, as ultimately the Chieftains just show their quality and show their class, but only come away with the 2 points in this one. A reminder, of course, that 3 points for a win in regulation in NHL 1 and 2 this season, but only 2 points if you win in extras or the shooter. But either way, a big character win for the Chieftains, winning on the road, having been behind by quite some distance. One team that did not come back from there and do any damage on the road was the Invicta Dynamos. They got absolutely humped by the Solent Devils in the early face-off in Gosport on Saturday, 9-1, and probably the sort of result that Alex Murray will have been wanting out of his side, having pretty handily dispatched the teams below them, but struggling a little bit with some of the teams above, of course, losing 7-0 to Slough earlier in the season. And in fact, the first time they played Invicta in Gosport, they were 3-0 up and lost the game. So to be able to do such damage and pretty much sort of sweep Invicta away like they were nothing is pretty impressive. And Alex Murray will have been a very happy man. The two sides then met the following evening down in Gillingham, and well, credit to Invicta for showing up. I do, however, I am slightly confused by the sentence I am about to say, though, as it goes to the penalty shootout, and Harry Cloutman with the game-winning penalty shot in the shootout to get Solent a 5-point weekend. You know that Alex Murray is going to be happy with that. I still can't believe Harry Cloutman scored a penalty shot, to be perfectly honest. But stranger things have happened. And if anybody's as dedicated to that Solent side as anyone, it's definitely Harry Cloutman. Cardiff, well, they recover a little bit and get something out of the weekend as they get a 5-2 win in MK. MK still winless on the season as a result, hanging around in some of these games, particularly against teams like Oxford and Cardiff, but they've got to find a way to win at some stage. They are currently as far as I'm aware, we're still down to that point of, I think, 3 teams in the entire NIHL without a victory, of which MK are 1. Cardiff, of course, got themselves off that last week. And then Stratton put up a cricket score. Oxford, bless them, short benched. Ross Miller, of course, suspended, so Morgan Parsons in for the full, taking the starts at the moment because they have to. But Streatham just do not take their foot off the gas. They want to make a point, and they have made a point. Obviously, that loss to Chelmsford was a bit like the bit in The Simpsons where Nelson Muntz gets punched in the face and says, "You made me bleed my own blood." Because then they did the number on Slough and ended Slough's unbeaten record, and now they have absolutely fried Oxford on the high road. Of course, Mark Saunders, Oxford coached the Streatham Blackhawks, the NIHL 2 side in Streatham, which of course had to fold for this season. So not a happy return to South London for Mark Saunders there. But what it ends up showing us, though, is that Solent at the top, a 5-point weekend, which is obviously very, very impressive. But 2 points ahead of the Redhawks. But the Redhawks and Slough have 4 games in hand over Alex Murray's side. So whilst obviously credit to the Devils for turning up and winning when they need to, I would be very, very surprised if Slough and Streatham do not slightly overtake them at some point, as well as the Chelmsford Chieftains, who have 29 points from 12 games. So obviously that little bit further back. But it would be pretty impressive if Solent hold on to top spot for more than a couple of weeks once teams sort of catch up. Romford, pretty impressive there at the start of the year. But again, been a bit of a surprise. Just like the Raiders in the National Division, the Buccaneers have surprised this season, and they are 2 points clear of Invicta down in 6th, which will not be something Carl Lennon is happy with. There is, however, then a massive drop-off after that top 6, as a 9-point gap down to the Swindon Wildcats in 7th. Oxford still in 8th place, albeit that Cardiff now with 2 wins on the board are within touching distance, and with 2 games in hand could theoretically overtake them. MK, 14 played, 14 lost, 124 goals conceded in 14 games, only 18 scored in that time as well. Excuse me. Ben Hyde there from Zero Pucks given. Max Van Mullen, absolutely terrific. That's because he's a fantastic young man. I'm glad he's doing well. Chris Beale, 2 for flinching, of course. A man of many places. You can see him in Slough. You can see him in Streatham. See him everywhere, as well as doing some highlights from the home games for the Redhawks. Got to give credit to Oxford. Scoring the first period particularly didn't reflect the hustle they had, and passing performance in net that period, but the short bench and quality difference told. Jonathan Akers, Clapton's penalty shot, he just blasted it in, whereas most of the others tried to be too fancy with it. There's something to be said for the defenseman. I believe it's Charlie from Macca Talks Hockey. He really hates it when people do that in shootouts. I think it's one of the best things ever as a result. Goal at the Utilita, as we can see there. Thank you to Andrew for sticking it in the chat. Blaine Byron puts the Eisbären Berlin 4-3 ahead against the Sheffield Steelers. It is quite weird because every Eisbären thing, because I watch Berlin games in German, I have to remember that I have to pronounce things with English without because that's the thing. So I read that, and of course Andrew hasn't managed to put the umlauts on it because it's not on an English keyboard. But it's the thing where people will. Eisbären Berlin is quite an easy thing for me to say because I've been saying it for the better part of 20 years. But yeah, either way, obviously South won quite a wide tent. It feels like Swindon are probably going to be locked in for that 7th spot and are going to make the playoffs at the first time of asking in this division. And then we are kind of in that 3-way race for that final playoff spot between Oxford, Cardiff and MK. But MK have got to find a way to win. They've just got to find a way to win. Of course, I was there when they won in Oxford. I think Oxford City fans will blame me, will ban me from turning up to the rink for that game. Then the fixtures then for this upcoming weekend in South 1. A pretty busy Saturday, all things considered. 5 p.m, as is the tradition, down at the Gosport Ice Arena, the Solent Devils and the Cardiff Fire. The Devils will be looking to build on that pretty impressive weekend that they had. They had a pretty impressive win, obviously 9-1. Pretty good home win. They will be wanting to look to do similar this coming Saturday. 5:30 p.m. on Saturday at the High Road for the Streatham Redhawks and the Invicta Dynamos. 6:30 p.m. at the Hangar as the Slough Jets welcome the Swindon Wildcats. And then 7 p.m. at the Thunderdome in a big game towards the bottom of the table. We talked about MK needing to find a way to win. Well, this is going to be one of their better chances to do it. MK Thunder, Oxford City Stars. Oxford won the encounter at MK earlier in the season, but this is a huge chance for the Thunder to put some points on the board. 3 games then on Sunday in South 1. 5:45 down in Gillingham for the Invicta Dynamos and the Slough Jets. 6 p.m. at the Riverside, the Chelmsford Chieftains and the MK Thunder. Not one I'd be expecting the Thunder to win, all things considered. And then, can the Devils get a 6-point weekend and still keep making their case towards the South 1 title? The Alex Murray side will travel up the road to the Oxpens and take on the Oxford City Stars at 6:15. Thanks to Andrew as well there for the some goals then finally in the second period of that elite league, of that game between the Clan and the Giants. Bobo Carpenter and Zach Galambo. I believe this is a Challenge Cup game. It is a Challenge Cup game, yes. Between the Clan and the Giants, as the Giants, I believe, pretty much already qualified, I believe, for the next round of the Challenge Cup. Into North 2 then, and not many games this weekend in North 2. But it was on Saturday. It was all the usual suspects. Then the two big names in North 2, the two sides that are on a collision course when it comes to the title in North 2 already early on. The Sutton Sting and the Telford Tigers. Well, it was a pretty early face-off of things considered. 3:20 p.m. is a bit of a strange one. They might as well have faced off at 3 o'clock and just gone head to head with the football, but. Sutton give it the perfect 10, a 10-2 victory for the Sting over the Bradford Bulldogs. And Telford, well, not quite as impressive, but in terms of their scoring, but an 8-2 win over the Sheffield Titans, again stamping their authority over their opponents further down the table. They're keeping both with perfect records so far this season. 2 games then on Sunday, a pretty tight, pretty close game between the Billingham Buccaneers and the Altrincham Aces up at the Forum, but it's the Buccaneers who sneak out another win. Last year's playoff winners looking to maintain and try and keep any sort of pace on the teams at the top. And Bradford, well, they get themselves another win. Obviously, given a bit of a lesson on Saturday evening, they appear to have learned from it as they beat the Nottingham Lions 2 by 7-3 over in Yorkshire. So as we can see, perfect scores all round, but the Tigers still with 3 games in hand over Sutton at the moment, and the Tigers have scored 96 goals in 10 games. They have been absolutely devastating, of course, helped somewhat by putting 24 on D-side a couple of weeks ago. Either way then, it's a little bit closer in the middle, but the Billingham Buccaneers are kind of off adrift by themselves. 9 points behind Telford, and 7 points clear of Kingston in 4th, having played only 9 games. So the Buccaneers, still a little bit off the pace of the title, but again, just like Coventry did last year, can the Buccaneers be the ones to kind of challenge and make a bit of noise behind them and keep the top two honest, shall we say? Kingston 14 from 11 in 4th place. Coventry, though, have 12 points and have 3 games in hand over the Sharks. The Sharks, of course, spared the ridiculous goal-scoring antics that we saw in the other 2 games in Hull this weekend. Altrincham on 12 points as well, but they've played 11 games. Coventry with a fair bit in hand. 10 from 11 for the Titans, 10 from 11 for the Bulldogs, but the Titans hold the tie-break is my understanding there. And then the 2 teams out of the playoffs at the moment, and with from the outside looking in, the Deeside Ducks do have games in hand, 3 games in hand in fact, which if they won would put them above both Bradford and Sheffield technically, so they're definitely not out of it. But they are probably going to have to find ways to not ship 20 goals against the teams above them. Nottingham, bottom, 3 points from 12. Just the 1 regulation win on the season so far for them. What that means then, we got games this upcoming weekend in North 2. 5:30pm over in Shropshire. And a big task for the Altrincham Aces as they travel to face the Telford Tigers. Banana skins can appear from anywhere though. The Tigers are going to need to be on their guard against an Altrincham side that maybe does not quite get the output that their effort deserves, but if they want to spoil the party, this weekend would be the weekend to do it. 6:30 at the Sky Dome, the Coventry Blaze and the Kingston Sharks will do battle, and then 7:20 at Ice Sheffield. The Sutton Sting will look to keep up their perfect start, but they have a pretty big task to do it against the Billingham Buccaneers. Sunday, 2 games at 5pm, both in the League and Cup. The Deeside Ducks, well, they'll be looking to try and not make it an American football score as they host the Telford Tigers, looking to just try and keep it into single figures. And also at 5pm at Ice Sheffield, the Sheffield Titans will take on Billingham. A big chance for a 6-point weekend for the Buccaneers if they want to keep themselves in title contention. 5:45 over in Altrincham. That is also a League and Cup between the Aces and the Bradford Bulldogs. And then the Sutton Sting on Sunday are the late show. They will travel to the CCM rink at the National Ice Centre, which will of course be streamed live on the Nottingham Lions YouTube channel. The Lions too host Sutton, and if Sutton get a result out of Saturday, they'll be hopeful of a 6-point weekend. To try and keep Telford at bay. Which then leaves us with South 2. Not many games in South 2 either this weekend. Just the 1 game on Saturday, and it wasn't even in the league. It was in the Eddie Joseph Memorial Cup. And Luke Clark returning to the Alexandra Palace with the Peterborough Phantoms and causing his former employers no realm of trouble. A 5-1 win from Nathan Pollard's side to keep himself in contention for that lovely extra bit of silverware, celebrating the life of one of British hockey's hardest workers in Eddie Joseph. All League and Cup action then on Sunday, and Cardiff, well, they liked it so much the Sunday before, they did it again. 7 days on from their 7-3 win in Gosport, they return home in front of a packed audience at the Vindico Arena and wins by 7-3 again against the Solent Junior Devils. So back-to-back regulation wins for the Canucks to get them off and running. The Bristol Pitbulls too, however, are definitely not off and running. They remain one of the only sides without a victory across the entire NIHL structure, and they had a pretty tough task down at the Spectrum as the Guildford Phoenix put the Pitbulls firmly to bed. 7-2 victory for Stuart Potts' side. Pretty comprehensive win from the League and Cup champions. Well, Lee Valley, they have been better this year, and they nearly blew it. They blew it a couple of times this year, but this time, unfortunately, Haringey, they do the business at Lee Valley. A 3-2 win for the Huskies, so not a good result in the Cup, but a good result for league standings for the Huskies, who will want to be challenging for that title. They win by 3-2 to condemn the Lions to another defeat. And then, well, if you liked goals, Oxford was the place to be, along with Hull, but a 7-6 win, a big win for the Rising Stars as they look to try and cement a playoff place this year as they defeat the Invicta Mustangs. So then just having a quick squiz at the league table, of course, slightly hampered by the fact that Guildford have played so few games. Peterborough, 8 from 8, 24 points, top of the table with a 6-point gap over Haringey in second, who have lost twice in regulation. But the Phantoms' numbers are ridiculous. 14 goals conceded in 8 games is pretty impressive numbers between Luke Clark and Vinny Graziano. Invicta in third at the moment. 16 points from 8, and then Guildford, well, just dropping that 1 point, of course, taken all the way by the Invicta Mustangs, but they have won 5 games out of 5, even though they have dropped a point. They would put themselves in a very, very commanding position should they to challenge Peterborough should they win those games in hand. Oxford then in 5th, 9 from 8. Cardiff now up to 6th place with their 2 regulation wins over Solent, 8 from 6. Solent 6 from 7. Chelmsford 3 from 5 rounds out the playoff spots at the moment, but they are level on points with Lee Valley. But the Lions have played 1 game more than the Warriors, and as we can see, the Pitbulls down the bottom, 1 point from 7 from that lone overtime loss earlier in the season against the Canucks. And then a few games, busier Saturday than Sunday in South 2. 5:30 p.m. at Alexandra Palace. A big game for the Solent Junior Devils to get back on the horse. Can they spring a surprise at Alexandra Palace against the Haringey Huskies? 5:45 at the Riverside for the Chelmsford Warriors and the Guildford Phoenix. Will Guildford go away and actually not put themselves in a giant hole to start the game? Remains to be seen. League only action at the Vindico Arena for the Cardiff Canucks and the Invicta Mustangs, and then back to League and Cup elsewhere at 6:30. The Peterborough Phantoms 2 take on the Lee Valley Lions, and then Sunday the Cardiff Canucks are the only team in town when it comes to South 2. Back-to-back home games for Trevor Hendricks' side this weekend, looking to fill up the Vindico Arena, as after the visit to Invicta on Saturday, they get the privilege on Sunday of taking on the Oxford Rising Stars. The Stars, of course, beating the Canucks earlier this season at the Ox Pens. Joe Morris and the team will be out for revenge in that one, I am sure. Well, there we go then. Every game played this last weekend has been discussed. Of course, we touched on the fact that Chelmsford and Slough was cancelled for obvious reasons. But every game that was played this past weekend in the NIHL has been talked about, which means, and especially because we aren't chugging through all of the stats, means it has been done a bit quicker. Hope you've enjoyed your holiday, Joe. We look forward to having you back next week. But that means we've talked about everything. The door is open. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, do stick them in the chat. And let's have a chat through some hockey as we've got a bit of time. As we are, obviously, like I said, we're running a little bit ahead of schedule. And if nothing else, because all the tech worked this week. Hooray! What a wonderful sight that is. But anything you want to chuck in. Like I say, the door is now open as we've talked about all things. As we talked about all the games in the NIHL. Just quickly going to refresh the scores on bits and pieces because just want to see how much time has gone. Although literally as I've refreshed everything, Marco Valorant's taken a cross-checking penalty, which is not ideal. But yes, Berlin's still winning by 4-3. We are in the 55th minute of that game. Keeping pace with Berlin is a bit of a sort of a Rocky 1-esque ending for the Steelers, but if they can find a way to get a late goal, going to be very, very impressive, all things considered in that one. Obviously, a lot of games to kind of be interested in there over the course of the weekend. I think certainly be interesting to get down to Cardiff for a Canucks game at home, where you're sort of getting a couple of thousand people to South 2, which is pretty bonkers, all things considered. Just looking at North. North 2, that Sutton Billingham game in North 2 is going to be very, very interesting on Saturday night because, Telford obviously were brilliant last year, only losing once in regulation the entire year, which of course they lost to Coventry. So Sutton, of course, has started like a house on fire, so that game against Billingham will be pretty big. Looking at South 1, where would I choose to go if I was going somewhere in South 1 this weekend? I'd probably go towards MK and Oxford. Obviously, bottom of the table clash, but one where there's a lot on the line. Oxford will be wanting to keep themselves in a spot where they can stay in the playoff places because it is starting to get tight, especially with Cardiff having picked up a couple of wins. But could MK finally get themselves off the mark is a big question there too. If we're heading North 1... where would we go North 1-wise? Probably Billingham. Probably Billingham Hull. That game on Sunday looks like the pick of those. Games for the weekend there. In terms of the national, Bristol Swindon on a Friday night would always be pretty tasty. Romford versus Telford could be good. Peterborough versus Leeds could potentially be good. I think Sheffield versus Romford up at Ice Sheffield on the Sunday. That looks like it could be an interesting one as well. So there's plenty of good games around. Andrew has stuck the women's hockey bits. No WNHL Elite, but GB games at Lee Valley, with Poland, of course, winning in overtime on the 8th, and then GB winning in a shootout on the 9th. So a split of that series as GB's women sort of prepare themselves as they head towards their Olympic qualifiers. Saturday then from WNHL 1 North, Solway with a pretty convincing 11-0 victory over the Nottingham Vipers. 5-goal, I'm not sure, I don't know who McGregor is off the top of my head, but a 5-goal performance, can't argue with that, and a 22-shot shutout for Lizzie Michler. What else have we got there in Division 1 North? Sheffield Shadows 5, Caledonian Steel Queens 5. Still one of the best names in British hockey, Caledonian Steel Queens. And then in the WNHL South 2 Cup, Slough Sirens 9, Invicta 0. Oxford's Midnight Stars 5, Solent Amazons 5. Then in the league in South 2, Coventry Phoenix 0, Haringey Greyhounds 4. And then some results from Sunday as well, we can see there. Cardiff Comets 3, MK Falcons 8 in 1 South. 2 North, Whitley Bay Beacons 2 go down by 4-3 against the Kingston Diamonds WNHL 2 roster. So plenty of hockey to be being played as well. So lots of exciting stuff there. Good results, I think, for GB, getting a split there of that weekend series against Poland, of course. Probably a team in women's hockey kind of around a similar-ish kind of level, so good for them to get that split. Good to get a victory. Good for both teams to get the legs going. Fixtures for this weekend then, as Andrew's chucking them in, from the Women's Elite League, Queen Bees versus Whitley Bay at 1:10 at the Hangar. Solihull versus Guildford is 6:25 at Hobbs-Moat Road. Kingston will take on the Streatham Storm at Hull. Andrew's not put the time for that one, so I don't know on that one yet. He's probably frantically typing and ran out of characters on that one. Trying to keep tabs there. Do we have any news out of Sheffield? We do, and it is a 5th goal for the Eisbären Berlin. They are now in a pretty commanding position on this game. Sheffield kill off the penalty, but Leo Ferdl has added a 5th goal for the Hauptstadtverein. And for the guests from Germany. I mean, Sheffield, like I say, credit to them for sticking around, but that little bit of extra class seeming to tell at the moment. But in up by 5-3. Elsewhere, just looking at the other, I'm pretty certain just looking to see what other games there are on currently. This appears to be. Sort of the only game in town in terms of this. One, I know Sparta Prague played Trinec early today. Sparta winning by 4-1. I think 12:30 at Hull. So that's who's taken the Sharks face-off time on a Sunday. So here we are. 57:38 is the last time check in Sheffield. As they are desperately trying to do the business there. We're just going to have a quick squiz of any other news whilst we're talking about it. Like I say, stick questions and comments in the chat. Anything people kind of want to talk about, because there is a fair bit. We've got various bits and pieces kind of going on. The other thing that kind of occurs to me, if you haven't taken the opportunity to do so, go and check out the latest 4,000 and counting. Nikki Watt chatting to Dr. Victoria Silverwood. Now, I haven't interviewed Victoria. I do know I've known Victoria for a while, but I kind of let Nikki have those conversations with her. Not trying to want to sort of step on too many people's toes for bits and pieces, but genuinely, it might be Nikki's best interview, because Nikki doesn't know the intricacies of the legal system, whereas Vic is her background is in criminal law, and now does all this academic bits and pieces and understands the intersection of kind of where we are. But I think where it's probably Nikki's best interview is because he's asking just honest questions, because he doesn't know. So he's asking the questions that all of us have in a way that we all can understand. I think sometimes and somebody who's obviously interviewed a lot of people. I like kind of burrowing into people's minds, but I genuinely, I think, you know, I know Nicky loves doing his interviews with sort of fellow players and getting those kind of stories. I think Nicky's at his best in this one because he's just asking straightforward, honest questions and trying to kind of say what a lot of people are thinking, which I know Nicky likes to. You know, I know that sort of Nicky likes to do, but for me, he asks good questions in this in a really, really good way, knowing that people are confused, probably because he, like the rest of us, is quite confused, not just with the why, because I think a lot of people in hockey have kind of got into their heads how they feel about the situation surrounding the death of Adam Johnson in terms of the actual incident itself, but learning how the eccentricities of the legal system can kind of play out. And actually, you know what? It's useful to know because something could happen tomorrow that could involve any of us in any of this. So it's really good. I really recommend you go and check it out because, like I say, I think Nicky's always been at his best when he's being brutally honest, and he's being brutally honest here, and his brutal honesty is, I don't understand how this situation works, and I think he's really good at that. So in this, and I think Vic gives really good digestible answers so that we can all get this idea. And even if you don't like the answer in that kind of sense, you know, because it doesn't make sense or it doesn't feel right, Vic doesn't sugarcoat the truth because she knows what she's talking about, and it's an expert standing 10 toes down going, this is why this is. So definitely, if you get the opportunity, do go check it out. I think it's one of the best ones that Nicky's put out, if I'm 100% honest. And I've known Nicky for a long time. And you know, he has an interviewing style, and I think he's obviously, you know, made good currency, as it were, of interviewing players, and he's able to kind of have those conversations with players because he has that same level of insight. It was him as well, and I think he does those in a really good way. And I know obviously people like them, but genuinely, I genuinely do go check this out because not only does Vic give great answers, I think Nicky asks the questions in a really good way too. So definitely go check that out. Once, of course, you finished listening to this, definitely do this first. Oi, oi, oi. Right, let's keep tabs. How is it in Sheffield? Do we have anything? No, we've got guys slashing each other apparently by the look of it. Just going to refresh. Nothing extra, although we are in the last minute of play by the look of it. 59.09 as I've hit refresh on the bits and pieces. Nothing else in there. Few videos sort of coming out as lots of pushing and shoving and bits and pieces, but this is what happens in hockey. Of course, it is a physical game that causes people to be physical, as it were. GB under 18 women last week also had 2 games against Spain. GB winning 1-0 on Wednesday against thanks to Rebecca Wolinski, and then a 1-1 tie on Thursday the 7th. Lydia Lutowicz with the goal. I believe that was meant to be a 3-game series, and actually, I believe Spain got delayed by travel, so it was going to be a 3-game series, which would have been really, really good. I like this approach from GB women if they're going to get teams over and play them and actually use the international breaks properly. I think the men's team should do it. What do I know on those things? And we have a final score from the Utilita Arena. It is all done. Sheffield Steelers 3. Eisbären Berlin 5 at the end of the first leg of that encounter. It means that Sheffield travel to the German capital next week, needing to overcome a 2-goal deficit to progress to the next round of the Champions Hockey League. We'll say last call then in that case. We've got a few, like I say, any extra bits and pieces we want to chat about it now. Of course, NHL seems there's a fire sale going on in Pittsburgh. Apparently everybody apart from Sidney Crosby is on the trading block, and we've already seen the first move, Lars Eller returning back to the Washington Capitals, which is a Caps fan who has a Lars Eller Capitals signed puck in his house. I'm very impressed with, because I love Lars Eller. Lars Eller is great. Also, actually, from a Cats perspective, the one thing they've struggled with is a bit of stability at third line centre. So bringing in Eller to do that, I think, is really cool. Quite excited for the weekend. I can't lie. I've got a couple of short weeks coming up from work as well. So I've got a couple of 3-day weeks coming up, just where I'm using up leave and bits and pieces. So the ability to just have a bit of extra rest and just go talk hockey is really, really good. Commentary is such a weird thing, and I think that's probably what I'm going to try and spend a lot of time. That's what I want to try and do when it comes to kind of sort of writing up these games. Try and kind of take people a bit more inside the commentary box and kind of get the idea of some of the logistics of what happens there. Maybe I'll try and speak to Paul, the producer from the Flames, and see if I can get him to sit down and have a chat about the in-depth bit of kind of how this is all put together, because it's quite easy for me. I turn up 75 minutes before face-off and stand on a load of scaffolding and kind of talk about it for a while. But my prep's already kind of underway. I have my issue I've got is that, of course, that being a Sunday game, the Flames are playing on Saturday night in Dundee, so I sort of have to pick up the updated stats on Sunday morning to make sure I have everything kind of up to date and in check. So I've kind of got blank team sheets with all the names to kind of, and then to fill in the numbers, as it were, on Sunday morning is going to be my task. But looking forward to it. Thankful for the opportunity that it is to do it. I've talked about hockey for so long, so to be able to kind of do it in this way is always really exciting. Second proper game of the season for me, and doing it by myself is always quite an interesting experience. So hopefully people seem to enjoy it as well when I do it, which is quite nice. As folks seem to enjoy the show too, which is always good fun too. But yeah, last call, folks. Last call. We will say that as we're heading towards the sort of the 9:20 mark, and we will let things kind of roll their way out. Very, very quickly going to see if there's any news out of Glasgow. Nope, still 2-0 for the Belfast Giants at the end of the second intermission. So no change there. Just the goals from Zach Galambos and Bobo Carpenter being all the difference at the moment. And the other thing I'll say as well, folks, because I know a few folks kind of watch back, if you want a topic covered and you obviously don't watch live, so you can't stick stuff in the chat, do drop us a message over on the Twitter or the Facebook or anything like that. The messages are kind of open, so if there's anything you'd like to, topics you want to kind of speak about, but you're listening back to this later on, just drop us a line. Quite happy to kind of pick bits up. I know make a lot about the show being live, people joining in live, but that doesn't mean, I know a lot of people do catch up, so if you want to talk about it, so if you want us to pick up stuff, do just drop us a message. Quite happy to talk about topics there. Either way, I think the tech appears to work better this week, and we'll be thankful for that, but we will call it there. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for all things related to the NIHL. Join me on my journey through British hockey, and now back up a step ladder as I go back to commentating for a little while. But the Banners on the Road series will still be there, and like I said, whilst I'm doing this sort of little residency in Guildford, different bits of content coming to the website. We'll get some interviews on. We've got, like I said, Andrew Day's going to do some stuff, going to do a piece for us that I'm really looking forward to reading and getting out to you guys. And quite happy during this gap as well. If you've got something if you're feeling brave and want to try and contribute something, by all means drop us a line. Happy to listen to ideas as well. Not happy to open the door for other folk who've not had a chance to do some writing about hockey. I know obviously this is an audio-visual medium, but still a great believer in writing, still big on writing. So if people want to have an opportunity and want to have a go, whilst I'm unable to watch as much NIHL with my own two eyes, by all means, drop me a line. Like I say, there's an opportunity here if people want to come and take it. As well as our Hockey Story series, long-form, in-depth pieces of content talking to the movers and shakers of hockey. We go from the 19th century to the present day, behind the Iron Curtain, into World War II, and beyond. Plenty for you to check out there, both written and audio visual. The back catalogue of the old BOTW podcast, and of course Dice Hockey, our free to download game that you can get from the website. All we ask is that if you download it and you enjoy it, please do stick a couple of quid towards Parkinson's UK, because my dad has Parkinson's and it sucks. And money for research and a cure would be awesome. But of course, all of that there, 13 and a bit half years worth of stuff over at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Banners on the wall, facebook.com/bannersonthewall. There's the Facebook page. If you like getting your news through your Facebook feed, head over, hit the like button, or every piece that goes on the website goes onto the Facebook page as well. And you'll get all the links for bits and pieces, new videos when they come out, and streams and stuff. They go there too. Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it, before Elon Musk eventually blows up the world, is over at Banners OTW. If you want us to go onto Blue Sky, let us know, because I know a few people are kind of migrating over there. But that's the best place at the moment, is Twitter, to kind of keep up with my rolling commentary on British and world hockey. And of course, there's our virtual busking hat at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. What I'd say for a week, if you're thinking of donating to BOTW, I won't stop you, but maybe for this week, stick a couple of quid instead. Go over to sudc.org.uk. Stick some money in memory of Tyler Hatfield instead. Definitely I think that's the time to kind of do that. But if you want to keep up with any links from me, bits and pieces, the joy of YouTube is everything is down there in the description, and there's plenty to check out over at the Banners on the Wall YouTube page. Subscribe to the channel, like the videos, share them out. Interviews with the movers and shakers of British and world hockey, as well as our Detailing the Devils series, my in-depth interview series with folk from the Solent Devils. Of course, you can check out our latest one with Cam Buckle over there. Game write-ups, all kinds of crazy things you can check out. And of course, the home to the NIHL's first, best and only live show that covers every game from every division, every weeknight, Wednesday nights, 8 PM, the BOTW What's Current stream. Either way, folks, thanks very much for joining us. The changes I appear to have made appear to have done the business. And it means that the tech has worked, which we will take. Plenty of hockey to come. 2 months into the season, feels like we're rocking and rolling. Hopefully, it's going to be a productive couple of weeks for all of us. Going to be keeping tabs, like I say, just because I'm away doing some other bits and pieces. Still going to be watching the NIHL, just from a different perspective. And like I said, if you want the opportunity to do some writing over the next couple of weeks, by all means, give me a shout. Be happy. And if you can't be happy, then wherever you are, please do your very best. Do please be safe. As my friend Scotty Woods would say, take care of yourself and somebody else. For bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, this is Anthony Russell saying stay safe. And so long for next time. Sleep tight, Tyler. And love to all the Hatfields and the Underdowns. Have a good week, everybody. Oh, and Sunday, Guildford Flames TV. See you there.